morning, everyone. Welcome to the July Shotsuki Memorial Service at the Higashonganji Betsui. It's kind of amazing to think that this is the fourth Shotsuki service that we're doing virtually. I'm an eternal optimist, and I was certain that we would be back in the temple, but unfortunately, because of the continuing spike in numbers, we're erring on the side of caution, and we're going to continue to stream services virtually, at least probably for the rest of this month. And let's hope that in August we can possibly start to incorporate some services here at the temple. But in the meantime, we appreciate everybody joining us virtually. It's actually kind of cool to be able to do this and to sort of connect to a lot of people, not only who are part of our immediate Sangha, but part of our, like some of our Sangha friends from around the country, and I think there's even some that are joining us internationally, so we appreciate that. Anyways, let's continue with the service, and what we're going to do is start with the Vandana Tisarana, the three treasures. So if you want to rise, we ask that you rise. And then after that, we're going to go into some music, but first we're going to have the Vandana Tisarana.
I take refuge in the Dharma. May we together as one enter the storehouse of the Dharma and attain true wisdom as deep as the ocean. I take refuge in the Sangha. May we together as one, uniting in harmony, strive to live for the enlightenment of all beings. The incomparable, deep and profound Dharma is difficult to encounter even through countless ages of kalpas. Now we are privileged to hear and receive it. Let us endeavor to thoroughly understand the true meaning of the Buddha Dharma. Namo Amida.
Okay, so now we will have a musical presentation. One of the things, besides missing all of you here in the audience, one of the things I miss is the music that the Otani Gakuen performs for us. But we're lucky that Ueni Toga, one of the choir members, and Mrs. Funai, the choir director, they work together to create this. And so please enjoy Maneki no Mite and Rainbow Connection. And Maneki no Mite means the welcoming hands. So this is Ueni Toga and Funai Sensei performing these songs. They pre-recorded this, so please enjoy. Well, thank you to Wayne and Mrs. Funai for taking care of that for us. We really appreciate their efforts because it does take time to do the recordings, and so we appreciate that. Now, if you can all join us for the chanting of Shoshingen. Hopefully, most of you have downloaded this, or maybe you already have it, and so we're going to start the chanting of Shoshingen now. Thank you.
Amen.
now it's time for the Dharma talks. First, the English Dharma talk will be our Rinban, so he'll be up here shortly. But before he comes up, one of the things that, as mentioned, our hope is to have services again, maybe in August. But one of the things we need to do is obviously do a lot of things to make sure that not only our staff and our ministers are safe, but also all of the members, and all of the people who attend our services. So whether it's the 6-foot distancing, whether it's having people sit not close to each other, except for family members, so those are a lot of the things that there's a committee right now that they're working hard trying to make sure that we're all safe. But one of the things is also cleaning the podium and limiting the number of people who use the mic and podium, because maybe some of you have seen other services where there are like 3, 4, 5 people sometimes who use the podium. But in the future, we are planning to kind of try to minimize the number of people who stand up here and use the mic, so that, again, we can minimize exposure. So bear with me for 1 second. Okay, and now here's the Rinban.
Oh, sorry for that. Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our July Shotsuki Memorial Service this morning. I was up in the altar, and then I realized that Reverend Fujii was wearing his mask, and so the only mask I had was this one, which is a nice mask, but it's really hard to chant with because it's really hard to breathe with this when you have to, when you're chanting. We also are going to be using this type, which is a face shield, and I think that this will be much easier for us to chant. But at any rate, today there's no, Jason's way like 20 feet away, so I think that I can talk without using these instruments. So the last couple of weeks, I think it was Reverend Peter who was leading the service from his home, and since this is our Shotsuki service, we have been doing Shotsuki every month here at the temple. And as she mentioned, it's been, we did the March Shotsuki here, and then from April, May, June, and then now July, this is the 4th Shotsuki that we'll be doing virtually. And it's been, kind of a series of trials and tribulations trying to figure out how to do it correctly, but with the help of Jason Wong, we find we have a good system, and we have strong internet so that we can be able to share our services from our home, from our temple. Today is our July Shotsuki Memorial Service, and although we won't be reading the names of the people that we honor, that we remember, it is that opportunity to think back on our family members, our ancestors who passed away before us, to think about the wishes that they had for us and make sure that we're doing the best we can to respond to those expectations. As a rule, here at our temple, we try to avoid voicing our opinions on political matters. But over the past, few weeks, I wrote 2 articles touching on the Black Lives Movement, which has reminded us of the reality that not all Americans are regarded as equal. And although this is a political issue, it's really when you really think about it, it's a human rights issue, and it is something that that needs to be talked about, that needs to be
to the best of our abilities. I'm sure that there are people out there among our members and our friends who wish that I would be quiet and not make statements about social issues. But on the other hand, there are those who commend or at least support the so-called Buddhist perspective on issues that are being presented or that we are dealing with. This movement, I think, has made us realize that we live in a country that prides itself on its diversity and its claim that all people are equal. It's not always true that people are treated equally. And I think that this movement has pointed out the lack of opportunities for people of color, inequities in income, in healthcare, in housing, in education, job opportunities, and so forth. And many of us who are affiliated with this temple are children and grandchildren of Japanese Americans. And we all know the history of discrimination that our community suffered from, lack of opportunities when they first arrived as immigrants, and then the wholesale incarceration of all people of Japanese descent in the camps during World War II. Yesterday, there was a statement made by people in our community. They gathered at Santa Anita racetrack and watched an aerial display that read, or it's what do they call it, aerial riding, like using airplanes. And there was a big kind of, aerial display which said, "No more camps." And as most of you know, when it was decided that all Japanese Americans will be gathered and sent to internment camps, for a period of time our families lived in the horse stalls at the racetrack for some time before being sent to the more permanent camps like Manzanar, Poston, Hart Mountain, and so forth. And so whether it was after 9/11 in 2001, when our community stood in support of the Muslim community, or the recent movement regarding unfair treatment of African Americans, because of our own history, the Japanese American community has supported other minorities in their efforts to enjoy equality. We have the natural tendency to judge ourselves in comparison to others. We look at how other people think and live, and we place ourselves in groups of like-minded people. That in itself isn't bad, but in doing so, we label ourselves and those in our group as good, and those who have opposing views as inferior. Our spiritual forebear, Shinran Shonin, once wrote, "I know truly how grievous it is that I, Butok Shinran, am sinking in an immense ocean of desires and attachments, and am lost in vast mountains of fame and advantage, so that I rejoice not at all at entering the stage of the truly settled, and feel no happiness at coming nearer to the realization of true enlightenment. How ugly it is, how wretched." The 20th century Shin Buddhist thinker, Shuichi Maeda, said in an article entitled "The Essence of Shinran's Teaching," the conviction that all human beings are equal comes from the realization that one is the most evil person in the world. When I become the only evil person in the world, everyone else becomes a good person. I no longer have the luxury of judging others, calling some good and others evil. I form the conviction that all human beings are equal. This book, which was translated by our good friend Dr. Nobuo Haneda, has not been that popular to some extent, I think because of its title, The Evil Person. No one wants to believe that he or she is evil, but Shinran used this term to describe himself. He was a person who engaged in deep self-reflection, self-examination, and through this process came to see himself as a person who was unable to extend true compassion to others. This evil, however, is not used in the same sense as it's used in social situations. It's referring to someone who is self-centered, who lacks the capability of being altruistic. And I think we can see that we're often guilty of that. In the issues that divide us today, we form opinions after looking at any particular issue and think that my view is the right one and those who disagree are wrong. Shinran is credited with establishing the Jodo Shinshu or Shin Buddhist tradition or denomination, but he would not agree that he was the founder of this tradition. He never considered himself to be a teacher. He said that he was a student of his teacher Honen Shonin, and it was Honen who established this tradition. He always claimed that he was his student, and that all the people who came to learn from Shinran were his fellow students, not his own students. This is, I think, quite different from other denominations of Buddhism in Japan. Nichiren is the founder of the Nichiren denomination. Kukai is the founder of Koyasan or Shingon. Dogen is the founder of the Soto Zen denomination. Last week, there was a lecture given by Dr. Melissa Curley, professor at Ohio State University, and sponsored by our Shinshu Center of America. Although I missed being able to hear it live, part of her focus was to talk about the teacher in Zen, and in comparison to how we regard teachers in our Shin Buddhist tradition. And the example of Shinran as a fellow student who inspired others around him to learn, but having that attitude of never becoming the teacher. The teaching of the Nembutsu made Shinran a person who always had his head bowed in respect, a person who took no credit in how he nurtured so many students who after his death kept the tradition going, and eventually, centuries later, became one of the largest denominations of Buddhism in all of Japan. So, in reflecting on Maida's comment, as Shinran stated about himself on any issue, we are all guilty in thinking that I am right, that my view is superior to another's view. And when we do this, we become guilty of thinking that we are better than those who have an opposing view. What happens is we look down upon those who we deem to be wrong in our opinion. We put ourselves on the pedestal and consider those who don't agree with my view as being inferior. As Maida's answer implies, the only way that we can regard all human beings as equal is if we are able to regard ourselves as being at the very bottom of the totem pole, so to speak, and to look up at others. That if we put ourselves anywhere, in the upper half, or even in the middle, or anywhere else, even towards the bottom, we are in effect, looking down at those who don't share our views, who don't agree with us. The path of Buddhism is to make us better people, but better does not mean to gain the knowledge that makes us superior to others. Rather, it leads us to become people who can listen to and learn from the opinions of others. I remember the words of wisdom spoken by an American Buddhist teacher, Jack Kornfield. It was introduced to me by my colleague, Reverend Noriaki Fujii in Hawaii. It goes, imagine that all people in this world are enlightened but you, each doing just the right thing to teach you perfect patience, perfect wisdom, perfect compassion. If we can see every person we encounter as our teachers, we can share the same insight as Shinran did, looking from the bottom to see that all people in all lives are precious and truly worthy of our respect. It may be an impossible task, but it will encourage us to continue to listen to and learn from the teachings of the Buddha, especially in the way that Shinran Shonin interpreted those lessons. But not only those formal lessons, but the lessons that we receive. Every person, every living thing that we encounter in our everyday lives. Buddhism also teaches us that the greatest impediments to peace within ourselves and in the world are greed, anger, and ignorance. We naturally are attached to our own views and strongly tend self-centered. We all must break through this cloud of ignorance to see the greater good. The Shotsuki Memorial Service we have usually on the first Sunday of every month is the time to remember our parents and grandparents, our ancestors before us. On June 3rd, our longtime office staff person, Mrs. Mary Moto, passed away at the age of 95. She worked at the temple for 55 years, longer than any of us who were ministers or who have been ministers at this temple. Her wish to us would be to continue to learn from the Buddha Dharma, to learn the lessons well, and in the same way that she influenced so many of us, to continue to listen to the lessons that Shinran Shonin has left behind for us. This month, July 1st, it was a very important month, or an important day actually, for our denomination, the Higashonganji or Shinshu Aniha. And I think that you all, we have been announcing that on June 30th, the former abbot, or the present abbot at the time, Abbot Choken Otani, who was the 25th abbot of our denomination, was to retire, and that on July 1st, Japan time, our overseas district abbot Choyo Otani, and who had also been designated as the successor to the abbot, took over as the 26th abbot on July 1st. And at the same time, his son Yu Otani became a person in the position of Shinmon. And Shinmon is a word which means new gate, literally. But what it means is that he now has become the successor to the current abbot, where his father eventually retires, I suppose. And also he has been named as the overseas district abbot, replacing his father, who became the abbot. And so when we have our home services later, hopefully in November, when we can all gather together, the overseas district abbot, Yu Otani, will be here to officiate our service. We express our deepest appreciation to our former abbot, Choken Otani, for serving as our abbot. I believe it was for 24 years. Yeah, at any rate, a very long time. And we look forward to all of the ways in which our current abbot, Shoyo Otani, will lead our denomination into the future. Well, with this, I conclude my talk. Thank you for listening.
Now we will have our Japanese Dharma talk by Reverend Fujii.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Masashi Fujii. How are you? I'm fine, thank you. As a Buddhist, what can we do in this serious situation? I think we can ask for the guidance to Buddha's teaching. And today I'm going to talk about the letter written by Renyo Shonin, our 8th abbot, and which is about infectious disease in Japanese. So But before that, I wanna say this book, the teaching of Jodo Shinshu and the history of the Honganji community, a handbook for Shinshu followers, were published in the end of June. So this handbook is really good because it covers all the teaching and the history of our denomination and Shinran Shonin's life history and such as altar decoration of Onaibutsu or many stuff. So if you read this book, you can understand almost all the teaching of Jodo Shinshu and lifestyle as a Shinshu follower. So I recommend this book. And this textbook, this will be the textbook for next generation's Dharmashi's program. So if you are interested in being next Dharmashi's, you can ask temple staff or ministers. So. 皆さんおはようございます。皆さんお元気でしょうか。私は元気です。そして、私の妻も、息子も元気に、しております。依然として感染症、コロナウイルスのそういった状況というのは、変わりませんし、他にも、差別の問題であったりとか、日本でも災害とか、たくさんの、大変な困難というのが、コロナウイルスの状況と一緒に、起こっていることだと思います。こういう時こそ、仏教徒として、ブッダの教え、仏教の教えというのを聞いていくことが、大事なんではないかなと思います。皆さんも、葬儀の際に、白骨の文という、8代目のそこに掛け軸もありますけども、8代目の、霊如上人の書かれた、お手紙というのを、お聞きになったことがあると思います。その内容としましては、朝には、元気な顔であった人が夕方には、そういう死んでしまうかもしれないという、人間というものは、いついかなる時でも、どういう年齢であったりどういう人だとしても、死っていうものが、間近にある存在だということを、語られている、そういった手紙が、お葬儀の際などに読まれることだと思います。で、その他にも、蓮如上人が全国のご門徒に書かれた手紙っていうのは、たくさんありまして、私も、正直最近まで知らなかったんですけども、駅歴の、手紙というもの、お文というものがありまして、1492年ですね、今から500年以上前に、蓮如上人がご門徒の方に、書かれた、手紙というものがございます。当時も、疫病、コロナウイルスではないですけども、日本で、そういう感染症というものが、流行り病として広がったそうです。で、全国のご門徒さんが、もしそういう病気で死んでしまったらどうしたらいいのかとか、そういう不安がたくさんあったそうです。で、そういう方に対して、こういう手紙を書かれたそうです。で、かいつまんで説明しますと、蓮如上人は、人は疫病によって死ぬのではなく、生まれた時から、死は我々に定まっていることであるとおっしゃっています。そして、このように苦しむ私たちに対して、救いの手を差し伸べてくださっているというのが阿弥陀如来様であって、そういったことに対して、感謝の念仏を申す生活っていうのを、していく。そして命を大切にしてほしいということが、書かれております。ですから、もちろんその感染症にかかって、死んでしまうということもあると思いますし、そういうこともあると思うんですけども、人っていうのはそもそもが生まれた時点で、死んでしまうということは定まっている、そういった因果の関係にある存在ということを、改めてここでおっしゃっております。ですからもちろん私たちがそういう感染症があるということで不安になってしまうことも あるんですけども、例えばお釈迦様が、人間の苦しみというのは生老病死というふうに、おっしゃったと思います。生きていることによって、大変なこともありますし、老いてしまうこと、年を取ることによって、苦しむこともある、病によって苦しむこともあるし、死によって苦しむこともある、そのうちの、一つであるわけです。で、ここで蓮如上人に、私たちはどうしたらいいのかと尋ねたら、こういうふうに手紙では、我々は元から、生きた時点で、生まれた時点で死ぬということは定まっている存在なのだというふうにお答えになってますし、その私たちを救ってくださるのが阿弥陀様です。ですから、その教えを聞き続けることが大切ですというふうに蓮如上人はお答えになっているわけですね。しかし、こういうふうにお寺に来て、仏教の教えを聞いて、人は死んでしまうものなんですよって言われても、そうですねっていうふうにうなずけるっていう人はなかなかいらっしゃらないと思いますし、病気にかかった時に、病気になったことによって、自分の人生について、生について、考えるいい機会になりましたねなんて言われてもなかなかうなずけないというのが、最もなことだと思います。で、そういう苦しみっていうのは必ずなくなるということはここではおっしゃってません。もちろん大変なことなんですけれども、そういう時に私たちがしなければならないというのは、こういう死が身近に感じられますよね。全然感染症、病気っていう目に見えないですけど、いつそれにかかって、死んでしまうかわからない、そういう死っていうものが、近い時、今生きてるっていう事実っていうものに対してすごく尊いものだっていうふうに、考えられるかと思います。そして、明日死んでしまうかもしれないからこそ、今日の振る舞いであったりとか、家族に対して感謝を述べるとか、そういった生き方っていうものが変わってくるわけです。ですから、死を身近に感じるからこそ、感じる今だからこそ自分の人生について、考え、そしてその行動についても考えていく。そうすることで一日一日を有意義な、暮らし方っていうのができることだと思いますし、こういう500年以上前にもこういうことがあって、蓮如上人は、そういう人っていうのは疫病が流行る方が流行る前が、生まれた時から死ぬということは定まっている。ですからこそ、しっかりとその私たちを救ってくださる阿弥陀様の教えを聞いて、一日一日を大切にしなければならないですよということをおっしゃってますので、こういう同じような、状況にある私たちも、仏教の教えというものをよりどころとして生活をしていくことが大切なのかと思います。これで終わりたいと思います。ありがとうございました。
Thank you, Fujii Sensei, for the talk. And it's interesting that there was a letter written so many years ago that's sort of relatable. But anyways, you can ask Reverend Fujii for more information about that. So a few announcements. One thing is, as you could probably imagine, Obon is going to be significantly different this year. So we're going to be doing a virtual Obon. Sorry, as I pulled up something here. So the virtual Obon will be on Saturday, July 25th. But in preparation for that, we recently did some Onotori dancing virtually. And one other thing that we wanted to do is get our members and others their favorite memories about Obon. And so what we're asking is that you record a message, a video message, and basically, I'm just going to read part of this. It says, we want you to share your memories and favorite things about Higashi Obon. So there's some questions that we want you to record yourself answering. And some of the questions are like, what is your favorite Obon food? What is your favorite Obon memory? What is your favorite Bon Odori dance? What is your favorite booth to work and why? What's the best thing you've won from the raffle? What is your favorite Obon tradition? And so we're asking you to film this, and some of the tips are to film it in a well-lit, quiet location. Film in landscape, so don't film it like this, but film it like this. And then also film it as best as possible, kind of straight on. Speak clearly towards the camera or the mic. Try to minimize background noise. Answer questions one at a time. Keep answers quick and brief. Wear Obon appropriate apparel if possible, whether it's a higashi hapiko, a yukata, jinbei, Obon t-shirt, something kind of Obon appropriate. And then, if possible, be sure to clarify which question you are answering, because sometimes there might be some similar answers. And then, of course, smile. And so, if you can record those memories and then send it to higashiobon@gmail.com, and you only have 4 days, by Thursday, July 9th. So it's Higashi Obon, so HIGASHIOBON And if you could do that by July 9th, we would appreciate it. And as mentioned, we are going to be doing a virtual Obon this year, and a lot of the staff and some temple friends are working hard on it. And it's going to be aired on July 25th, which is Saturday at 5 p.m. Pacific time. And then we will also stream our Hatsubon service, which will be on Sunday, July 26th at 10 a.m., and it'll be streamed from the temple here. So if you have any questions, you can call the temple office, because I gave you a lot of information all at once. It's going to be, again, we're doing the best we can to make this as memorable as possible. And, I think the hope, and I'm almost certain that this is going to be a once-in-a-lifetime Obon. And so if you can participate and share some of your favorite memories, and definitely watch the virtual one on July 25th, that would be appreciated. So you have 4 days to send your video memories about Obon to the email address I gave you earlier. Any other announcements? No? Okay, so now we are going to go into the Gatha on Doksan, so if you can bear with me. Thank you. So that concludes our service, but as mentioned, we are preparing to have all of you come back to service, hopefully next month. And this is one of the things that we have here. It says it's 6 feet, and so this is how far we are. We're trying to keep people apart. And so I know many of you may want to come hug me, but I will have this in front of me so that you can only get this close. So, again, we are really hoping that we can get some of you back here to join us at our services next month. But in the interim, please be safe, stay healthy, and wear your masks when you're out in the public, and take care of yourselves. And don't forget about Virtual One and sending your your One memories. So that's it for today. Have a good Sunday, and we'll see you soon, I hope. Thank you.